I scheduled my laser hair removal session a little while ago now. I actually like missed the last one because I had a bizarre phone conversation with like the lady who's meant to keep the appointments happening regularly.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I like she called me up and she was like, "Hey, do you want to book in this appointment?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess so." And she could tell I was feeling like shit, and she was like, "Oh, is anything, is everything okay? Like, have you missed the last one? Like, have you been all right?" And I just had a moment because it was like a couple days after the Supreme Court ruling came out, and I'm just like walking along from like Big Asda, feeling like shit. It's completely overcast, and she's called me up to be like, "Hey, do you want to come and get your face shot with lasers?" And I'm like, no. So I just started telling her like how I was doing and how like current events have been affecting me. Anyway, I booked in for Saturday, 13th of September, and I go to a quite central London place. And so yesterday, when 100,000 Tommy Robinson loving fascists filled up central London, yeah, I was at my laser place. There were flag nonces everywhere.
Oh,
Um, so I think, I think braver than the troops, certainly. I think, I might be the bravest girl who's ever lived.
you might
Um,
just be.
could be. It's Red Planet, everyone. How are we all doing?
Mm.
I'm a bit under the weather. Half our crew is coming down with stuff, but the Conrad is the other one, so you don't hear his voice. You just got to put up with me growling.
All right. Well, why don't we start off by going through, as we normally do, the most based thing that we all did this week. What about you, Mule? What's the most based thing that you did in the past week?
Well, I've still not been actively doing any organising, but I have made the decision this week to get back involved with Greater Manchester Tenants Union member solidarity. Yeah, I was just taking like a big break and obviously seeing the way that fascism is rising in the UK and knowing that the best way. I think about I've seen a table quite often posted about whiteness and white supremacy, and there's about
Mm.
eight different sections, and obviously it goes from completely supporting white supremacy and believing that it's good and correct and yada yada, um, all the way to the other end, which is rejecting any attempts to reassert whiteness in society. And we're just like kind of nowhere near the middle in the UK. I was talking with another friend who's an
Mm.
activist earlier today, just talking about how we actually need to provide the spaces and the resources to deconstruct whiteness within our society. And it's just like something that doesn't happen even in organizing spaces.
Mm.
um like the fact that this many people feel comfortable to just because it's what's happening. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but what's happening with the right at the minute is that they're doing things like, and they've been doing this for about 10 years, just very calmly and very quietly saying the most offensive, disgusting things that you could possibly hear, and then them going, but you're getting so mad about it. I'm just chill. What's going on? I'm so chill, sat here telling you that you're subhuman. Like, what's going on? And obviously they're goading people into fights. They're goading people into reactions so that they can go, look, we told you these leftists were all so violent and disgusting.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think that like you need to just understand, like everybody just needs to understand there are figureheads that keep this stuff running. And if you could get through to people on the ground by doing regular organizing, tenants union organizing, trade union organizing, you're going to speak to a lot more people, and you're going to have like a lot of an impact kind of thing. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the direct reactive response to fascism today on this show. But yeah, I think that it just kind of inspired me to just get back involved with community organizing. So
Mm.
not doing anything at the moment, but yeah, that's what I'm planning on. And Tim, what about you?
I mean, I was up to a little bit this week. I've got like, I guess it depends on, well, no, I'm not going to say it. I've done two different base things. Okay. Well, one of them was we had probably the largest demonstration I've ever personally been a part of on Saturday. So it was called the March for Humanity, and it was a pro-Palestine rally in Auckland. It was meant to close down the Harbour Bridge, but there was a last-minute wind warning, And it was like, and it has been, the wind has been like super heavy here recently. So it would have been like, yeah, pretty dangerous. So instead, it was just down the middle of town, and it was huge. I so they're saying 20,000, which is big for Auckland, but I think that's a police estimate, which always underestimate. Whereas like there was a nurses strike like maybe like 6 years ago that was the largest in Auckland, I think, and that was like 30,000. And this was like easily like much larger than that. Um, but yeah, but it was like, yeah, it was huge. Biggest that I've ever personally been, and it felt huge as well. And seeing the drone footage, it was like gigantic. One thing I did notice though was like I did bump into some people that I know there, and even like some clients from work and stuff. And there were a lot of people talking about like what do we do after a march? You know, like what happens like when you
That's so
start
good to hear.
realizing that marching is like, you know, like we do this giant march and like the government doesn't even like acknowledge it or comment on it in any way or anything like that. It doesn't commit to anything or whatever. And I even outside of the actual day of the march itself, I've seen people having the same discussion where I think a lot of people are getting to the point where they're going like, hey, look, we've been doing this for like a couple of years now. Like every Saturday we're, you know, getting together doing this march. We even had this gigantic one. And like what's the next step from there? There was an activist. I mean, there have been a couple of activists that have in New Zealand worked to disrupt actual operations, like you know, like companies like Albert, you know, Honeywell. There's one called Raycon as well. And I think that people are starting to look a little bit more at that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, so but yeah, the rally itself was huge. Um, and it was great to see that people are still really coming out for this. The other base thing that I did was I got like can't probably it's probably TOS, but I got uh I got my traditional like butt tattoos done, rape rape, which is like a huge thing that is for me anyway. It's like a traditional Maori butt tattoo, big spirals kind of thing that go like my butt and lower back, which was brutal. It was like a very solid day of getting tattooed from like it's like from 9 a.m. to like 7 or something. So I like even I'm tired still. So that's what I got up to this week. So what about you? What are you up to?
Just hub shifts so far. I have plans to like discuss community healthcare stuff with a friend like tomorrow, but that's not.
Nice.
I just had a hub shift. There was a trans girl who came in who is in a trans squat somewhere in London, and she came in like, I need injection supplies for like
Hmm.
20 people,
Oh
and
wow.
like also like testing strips and like safer sex supplies and any literature you've got and all this stuff. And I was just like thinking to like like squats and warehouse like places I've seen, and I was just like, oh my God, I wish there were people doing this stuff for those spaces. It's so cool to see that someone's coming to the hub and
Yeah.
like getting as much harm reduction stuff as possible. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think that was it. This
I
week,
mean, you're
hopefully there'll be
like,
cooler
oh,
stuff
just
to
just a hub shift and then something like insanely fast. Um,
The hub shit,
yeah,
the hub is
cool.
great. Yeah, I mean, big up the harm reduction hub. There's been a
Mm.
recent thing where like one of the flag shaggers sprayed a St. George's cross on the shutter,
Oh
and
yeah,
we might be doing like a refugees welcome thing over it. So if we do that, I'll definitely post pictures and people can look forward to seeing that.
cool.
But for now, we want to know what based things you, the audience, have been doing. You can message us all on social media, or you can send an email to based@redplanetshow.com. Include your name and pronouns if that's cool with you, and we may shout it out in a later episode. But for now, we're going on to the news. Mule, tell us about Bash Back.
I will. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done a show, and there's been a bunch of cool actions and wins that we have seen. But yeah, let's kick off with this. So, this is Bashback taking action for trans inmate who died in prison. Bashback, the trans direct action group who targeted Wes Streeting's office on the 1st of August with the message, "Don't want action, don't kill kids," have also targeted Sodexo's offices. Sodexo is a French catering firm who also run HMP Bronzefield in Ashford in Surrey, where a trans inmate, Tony Asic, died in custody after having his medication withheld, constant misgendering and harassment and abuse from screws. Tony died 2 days away from another inmate dying due to similar negligence. These are not the first deaths at Bronzefield and not the first examples of extreme negligence by Sodexo, as back in 2023, 18-year-old prisoner Rihanna Cleary had to bite through her baby's umbilical cord as she gave birth alone in her cell as a Bronzefield screw disabled the call bell to her jail cell after Rihanna asked twice for help. Bashback reported that in the same week of Tony's death, an 18-year-old trans man had also attempted suicide due to similar transphobia, not to mention being in a women's prison directly at odds with his gender. Bashback targeted the offices of Sodexo at an undisclosed location. There are several Sodexo offices and locations in the UK. The windows were smashed and, quote, "Sodexo killed Tony Asic," end quote, was sprayed onto the building. In their statement, Bashback said, quote, "Every death in prison is a murder. Every incarcerated trans person is a victim of the same harassment that killed Tony Asic," end quote. They went on to say, quote, "The prison system is designed to dehumanize, erase, and kill trans prisoners. By taking action against Sodexo this week, we stand in solidarity with Prisoners for Palestine, Cage, No More Exclusions, and the Anti-Carceral Solidarity Network in condemning the hideous abuse the prison system wreaks on its victims, and standing with all prisoners, our trans siblings, our fellow activists, the Filtered 24, especially T. Hutcher, who remains on hunger strike, but this is just a mule edition. We're going to be talking about T in a minute. She is not still on hunger strike, thankfully. In HMP Peterborough as we write this. So we will be keeping an eye on Bashback, as this is the second action that they've done, that has definitely, obviously, been pretty well received, and well, not well received. I'm sure Sodexo hate it, but that kind of means well received in our books, doesn't it? So what do we got here next up, Soph?
So, if people have missed these stories in the last couple of weeks, I don't know where they've been, because there's been footage of this absolutely everywhere. But there's been basically massive uprisings in Indonesia and Nepal. We talked a little bit on our bonus episode recently, about like how things in Indonesia are going. If people don't know the general context of that, like there was a public outcry after they found out that the like lawmakers were making twice as much on average as absolutely everybody else in the country. This led to huge protests. The police cracked down on them. The police ended up killing a delivery driver, and then this drew tons more people into the protest, and they just started setting shit on fire, cornering cops, massive crowds of people chasing away riot cops, and bizarrely, the flag from One Piece has been like the a uniting banner for the uprising in Indonesia. Um, but yeah, we chatted a bit about that on on our recent bonus episode if you want to hear more on that. But in the meantime, like things are relatively quiet in Indonesia now. Things have been kicking off massively in Nepal over the last fortnight. We've seen enormous mass protests, some of which have also used the One Piece flag after the corrupt government responded to criticisms on social media by trying to outright ban social media in the country. Basically, there was like a massive trend of people talking about like nepo kids, like just like nepotism and corruption within the government, and people were just pointing out how yeah, like just everything was being run by relatives of someone already in power. And the prime minister at the time was just like, yeah, you can't have TikTok anymore. Then we're just shutting down all social media. And unfortunately, in the West, some media outlets have misconstrued this a bit. Like these are kids who were protesting because social media got switched off, and it's like they were on social media talking about stuff that was shit, and then social media got cut off, so they got in the streets to protest about the same stuff that was shit, right? Anyway, so things are really massively kicked off. Protesters poured onto the streets and fought with riot cops, very similar to Indonesia. But in this case, the Nepali Parliament buildings were set on fire, as well as the residence of the Prime Minister. And yeah, it was absolutely like incredible scenes produced. If people haven't seen this footage, I encourage people to look it up. Yeah. Nepali Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned amidst the rioting and public outrage. For now, the interim Prime Minister is Nepal's first female Prime Minister, incidentally. She was elected over a Discord vote, um, because this is just like a fascinating kind of youth revolution happening in Nepal. She told press, "We have to work according to the thinking of the Gen Z generation. What this group is demanding is the end to corruption, good governance, and economic equality." She will leave after 6 months and there'll be another election then. So, we'll keep an eye on that and see how that's all going. Interesting, promising words, but they are just words. Meanwhile, Indonesia is reorganizing its government under the promise of rapid growth. Indonesia is the biggest economy in Southeast Asia, I think. And so for them, getting things economically, getting the line go up is very important. So in wake of the recent protests, Finance Minister Sri Mulyani has stepped down. She was, I'm quoting from from Reuters here, known for her cautious handling of the economy through various crises, and she's been replaced by an economist who says they will get rapid growth really fast. Pobaya Yuri Sadewa has promised rapid economic growth, saying that protesters who've been asking for fairer taxes will, quote, go away automatically when the economy is doing better, adding there is, quote, no need for new taxes. So at a time of such instability and public outrage in Indonesia, it does seem to me like they're setting themselves up for the same situation, not that far down the line, but we'll just have to see. Tim, what's been going on in France?
France has been pretty crazy lately. So they had a new prime minister who just like a week ago did a confidence vote who he lost. Macron, who is the president, not to be confused with the prime minister, then brought in a new guy, Lecornu, who is like basically everyone's upset because Macron just is setting up a government full of loyalists, and they're all just kind of like there's all kinds of problems going on over there with like the cost of living, like all this kind of stuff as everyone else is kind of facing. And the people are feeling like nothing is going to change because it's the same people. So yeah, people all across France, from hospital workers to students, are blockading roads and infrastructure to protest years of brutal austerity cuts from Macron's government. And they're rightly furious that this new prime minister, Le Cornu, is just another loyalist, proving the rich man's government doesn't care about working people and will keep slashing public services. The state's response has been predictably vicious, deploying a massive force of 80,000 cops to violently break up the blockades with tear gas, batons, and arrests. It's a classic display of how the capitalist state protects the interests of the elite by using its police to crush any popular resistance to their agenda. The movement is a powerful grassroots effort inspired by the Gilets Jaunes, I don't know, the yellow vests.
Gilets
Gilets
jaunes.
jaunes.
Yeah, that. Showing a real desire for direct action outside of traditional party politics. So while there's tension with established left parties and unions, their support is also crucial. So this is a class struggle that they all have against a common enemy, and solidarity obviously is the greatest weapon. Despite the heavy repression, the protests successfully caused major disruption, showing that when people withdraw their labor and block the flow of capital, they have real power. This is the essential fight back against neoliberalism. The system only works if we cooperate, and movements like this show how many working class people are finally refusing to. So, what about what's happening with the Filton 24 mule?
So this was written a couple of weeks ago, but I have updated it since the new news has come out. But this is regarding a member of the Filtered 24, T. Hocher, winning her prison hunger strike action. So, a member of the Filton 24, T. Hutcher, currently incarcerated at HMP Peterborough Prison, as mentioned in the back story, has won her hunger strike demands for her basic necessities that were taken away from her 2 months ago. T was remanded in custody following an alleged Palestine action operation at the Filton factory of Elbit Systems. It is alleged at this location the genocidal weapons firm manufactures and supplies the Zionist entity known as Israel with quadcopter drones, the kind that mimic the cries of women and children in an attempt to lure Palestinians out of cover to shoot them with attached guns. T's basic limited freedoms, such as her library job and her mail, were withheld from her for no given reason. After receiving a horrendous amount of Islamophobic abuse and lies from the screws at Peterborough, things the screws have said to her are along the lines of, quote, "It's illegal to support Palestine now, and that means you're a terrorist," end quote, referencing the prescription of Palestine action. T's family and support system asked people to phone HMB Peterborough to demand that these basic freedoms be returned to her, and after public pressure, her library job has been confirmed to her in writing, and her withheld mail was also returned to her. US inmate Casey Goonan, who was arrested in the States on suspicion of arson in relation to a pro-Palestinian protest, and his cellmate joined T on hunger strike despite Casey being a diabetic, in solidarity with their British comrade, and striked alongside her for 8 days. T's strike lasted 28 days and the public pressure campaign was fierce in the final days, proof that we can support our comrades anywhere they are, even in the cells of the state. So this next story, Sophie, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this just because like there's this massive arms fair in London. It happens every year. It happens like not that far from here, in the Excel Centre, in East London, and it's just that that's a massive convention hall. Like if like VidCon is in London, it'll be there, like this kind of thing. But it's this massive arms fair, right? And it's like always like the IDF and all the worst fucking people and just like George W. Bush's homunculus is sent to like virtually represent him, and they literally have weapons there that are illegal under international law. Like that was true this year. There was reporting on this that like there were weapons there that are just illegal, and like the people who found this out had to like point it out to the fair and have them quietly removed. But it's just like, and this year finally there's been like a big protest, which I'm just like, fuck, finally after all this time. It was just really pleasing to see as something I've wanted to see in a long time. So. Hundreds of protesters descended on the Excel Centre this week, shouting at arms fair participants and even blockading the entrance to the event, to the surprise and horror of the police. There was a police contingent of BTP and TSG there, none of their own like local jurisdiction. And they were really unprepared for this, which we'll get to in a second. This arms fair has been around as a long time, as I've said, and it receives regular criticism. And like there are always like a few protesters, like guys just with a sign being like, "Hey, stop blowing up children," and the guy making $1 million per child blown up goes and just goes carries on in with his like kombucha. This was massive. Police repression was pretty fucking nasty, but it's an interesting situation. We'll get into it, right? So Kevin Blow from Netpol wrote for Freedom News, quote, "One older peace campaigner from Bristol was fortunately helped to his feet unharmed, but a young woman left the kettle in an ambulance with a broken ankle. Not long afterwards, another protester was knocked unconscious and also taken to hospital. An independent legal observer monitoring the policing of the protest also suffered a broken wrist." Like the cops just literally went fucking sicko mode on these guys. And the reason is fairly straightforward. Like they were completely baffled. Like they just didn't properly see it coming. It's worth reading that article in Freedom News. Kevin has some interesting insights, and like I think his analysis is overall really good. There's a few factors that contributed to this being really good. Like there were a bunch of protesters who were at a different protest earlier in the day. There was one of the Defend Your Juries ones where like people just get like arrested en masse, and there were a bunch of people there who were very prepared to help de-arrest people, but that wasn't the plan. And they came from there to this one where the police are all going sicko mode and they're like, yeah, let's just fight the cops.
Hell yeah.
Basically, yeah. But also like quite crucially, and this is in Kevin's article, we always overestimate the cops' ability to know what we're up to, and actually they gather most of their surveillance information by what we just really casually share online, what we are really, really careless with. And this protest seemingly had really good OPSEC, so like, they just weren't properly prepared for a bunch of people to show up before the fair and completely blockade the entrance and not let anyone in. So yeah, like more power to them. I think that's really sick. And it's interesting seeing this like divergence in tactics between the Extinction Rebellion, Just Stop Oil, Defend Our Juries, like just get arrested model versus this like direct action focused thing. Like it was, is definitely two strains emerging in activism now. Um, yeah, and that's the news. Um, so before we go into the main segment, I want to remind everyone that Red Planet is a show made possible by our Patreon. It's patreon.com/red_planet. And yeah, it's important to support the show. We need your support in order to keep on making the show and to finish the Zad documentary and keep, going places and covering stuff, getting great guests on. And I think speaking of guests,
Mm.
uh, I already mentioned earlier that we had a massive like flood of fascists in central London yesterday. We want to discuss that with our friend of the pod and local organizer Joe is here to join us and chat about that. But first, we're going to chat a little bit about I don't know if anyone saw this week, but speaking of podcasting, um, Steven Crowder recently changed his Twitter bio. It used to say host of the number two conservative podcast in America. And on September 11th, 2025, he changed it to host of the number one
No, he
conservative
didn't.
podcast
I
in
No,
saw
he
that.
America.
didn't.
It's actually
He
While
amazing.
couldn't he
while
couldn't wait.
while Charlie Kirk was probably still warm, like
That's
he,
wild. That's
Yeah,
wild.
incredible. It was like, yeah, I saw the tweet pop off. It's so good. It's like
yeah,
it just kind of shows how they all really feel about each other. One thing that I've noticed is while everyone else has been so cynical and like, like operating like Crowder around his death, like looking to increase the grift, the one person that has actually been quite like like I think quite emotionally impacted by this more so than his wife is Candace Owens, which is
I've
like
oh yeah,
seen this. They
it's
were
kind of
girlies.
like
They were
crazy
girly,
time.
yeah,
girly pop
they were
girlies.
girlies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, everyone has been posting, like pictures of her stories versus everything else. And it's like, oh, all these like candid selfies, skipping around, getting coffee together, doing all this kind of stuff. And then like, you see like, yeah.
So
Hello?
Joe,
Anyway,
how far up
we
the
just
conservative
totally got
podcast
this.
No,
rankings
I
have
didn't want
you
to
gone?
interrupt. There was a whole thing going on.
Yeah.
Joe,
Sorry, say
Joe,
that
I
again,
believe
Sophie.
you were like number 15 in conservative podcast rankings before September 10th this year.
Oh,
How
big
far up have you
14.
moved? Have you changed your Twitter bio yet? Are you?
How dare you? What are you trying to
Um,
imply?
yeah, no.
Um,
Do you have a take on what's happened this week? It's been a crazy time.
um, I I'm not sure if I have a take beyond like it's very interesting seeing like the degrees to which um like politicians like will pivot once they realize it's one of theirs who did the shooting. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Trump getting the question, "You must be really sad your friend died," and responding, "Look at the trucks by the White House. We're building a ballroom." Was absolutely
That
brutal.
was incredible, actually. Like he gave a second or the video of what he's at the baseball or something, and he's dancing like this, and it's like this man that was apparently like your son who died less than
Yeah,
24 hours
that dance
ago,
fucking kills me. Where
and
it's just like,
It's
oh, so
great.
good.
You could just tell the meds are just like really kicking it like real
Oh, yeah,
hard at
yeah.
that point, and he's
Yeah,
fucking
there's
going sick.
the stroke
Oh.
meds or whatever's going on there.
Yeah.
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 Look,
No,
as a-
actually, what he was doing when he was like when his face was going down like that, he was actually just trying to get his neck further into like the Kevlar vest that he's got. Like that's what he was trying to do.
He's
He's
trying to
trying to
create a
distract
moving
like a
target.
turtle.
Yeah, distract
Yeah.
snipers.
It's
Um,
anti-AI face detection. Sorry, I'll stop.
I've been I've been saying in a few places, and I was saying to the boys just before the show that like I'm a little bit skeptical that the shooter is a groiper. But have people checked in on Nick Fuentes? Like, how is he
What is a
doing?
groiper? I've seen this word
Okay,
a couple
so
of times. On
Oh,
okay, I yeah,
most straightforwardly, groiper is just a Nick Fuentes fan, but it's a bit
yeah.
more complicated than that because
I feel very
basically
blessed. I don't know who that is either.
they
Okay,
come
oh God,
from well,
let's
so
have a
I'll
look at
explain the whole
this.
thing then. Okay, so Nick Fuentes is like is a strange little Nazi man with big yowie hands, and
Mm,
he has an obsession with creating the Aryan super, fatherland,
As you do,
and
yeah.
also with femboys, and so he has like a very specific kind of like 4chan Nazism where he
yeah,
believes that like they will create like the land for the master race that will rule over all the world, but also like there will be boy wives there and
yeah,
like
yeah.
there will be some degeneracy as a treat kind of thing.
There
And so
has been
he
many
Joe's
rumors
face.
over the years of him actually being queer himself. Like there has been
yes,
like yeah, like
yes,
it's
like
been an
when Destiny
ongoing
sucked him
thing.
off. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
wasn't gonna say it, but I was gonna say
Well,
there
I
has
gotta
been some
get Joe
direct
up to
evidence.
speed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Destiny
yeah,
This
yeah.
sucked him
this
off. It was
does
funny
And
as hell.
the femboy partner as well, with that with the cat ears all the time. Yeah, like that was an arc. Like
this does track with the messages that were on the bullets, I will say.
yeah.
Right. So
Allegedly. Is that confirmed? I don't
Fuentes
know.
is that is confirmed. So Fuentes is like um Fuentes and his whole sect hated Charlie Kirk because like Charlie Kirk is the kind of Christian identity movement of America turning into fascism, turning into obvious fascism kind of progression. And they believe in just like immediately go foot
Yeah.
right down on the pedal all the way mega
Like
Hitler.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, that like specifically the most recent stuff about Charlie Kirk, they hate him so much because they're so anti-Semitic that they, like the fact that he was like sticking up for Israel was
This is
like a
true.
real sticking point for them
Mhm,
because they
mhm.
just see Israel as Jews. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
So
like
it's
within
important to
days
understand.
of oh, I was gonna say
No, go on,
like
Tim.
days beforehand, like Nick was putting out these videos calling Charlie Kirk an enemy and all this kind of stuff. And then as soon as the shooting happened, he put out another video being like, okay, everybody needs to like calm
Yeah.
down.
Oh, I
So I
think I
think
saw
like
this.
this is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
telling. Like this is
Yeah.
very
Yeah. Yeah.
like I feel like he knew that it was
Damage
one of
control.
his crew immediately. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I
Um,
think that's a very telling.
Nick Fuentes is kind of like he's the member of parliament for 4chan. Like he speaks
Mm.
their language
Oh
and he
God.
espouses the things
Yeah.
they believe in.
It's like
Um,
kids that grew up on the 4chan, like or doing all the Pippi memes, and then like
Mhm,
mm,
mhm,
Pippi
mhm,
kind
mhm.
of got like, thrown into the bin and replaced by this other character, this like Groiper character who's like kind of the chubbier Pippi sort of thing. And
yeah.
that's where that all kind of came from. Like the very like super layers of irony, like it's very cutesy, but also arguing
Joe,
for
it's given me so
racism.
much hope that you don't know what any of this is and you're like viciously Googling, like,
Look,
because,
I
I
had one of the
tried
Joe
girls I
not to
just
be
work with.
online when I can,
Yeah.
Joe just walks around in the woods and looks at frogs and stuff. Like
I
it's
mean,
we're
that's
really
so
like
good. That's so
yeah.
good.
And then organizes locally in the community. It's powerful
yeah.
stuff. But I think this is like I do want to stick on this to getting into the protest that happened yesterday a little bit because I think there's a lot going on with like fascism and spectacular politics at the moment.
Mm.
So Fuentes is fascinating because he like speaks to the Channers and the school shooter
Mm.
demographic, and then they made him their little like freaky boy king who's bad to see and worse to hear. And like he hates and really resents like all of the guys who can do real world politics
Mhm.
and like and again I'm saying all of this like I'm not convinced that the shooter was a groper. I don't know for sure that's true at all, but that is who Fuentes is, and I think there is a tension where like those kind of hyper online guys who are like really think they're ready for a civil war feel super sidelined in like MAGA 2 because they're just shut-ins. Like they're just in their basement.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
they've made the fascist America, but they're still not happy or like able to go outside because it didn't cure their social anxiety. And I
Many such
think that
cases.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like that thing. It's
Uh,
like the right have power. They have the government. They have like,
mm,
they control the media, all those kind of things. But then like you get these people that are still just as dejected, lonely, sad, and cells as ever. And it's
yeah.
like like they're the fringe of those guys that yeah get involved with. Well, they get into like 4chan, they get into 8chan and all this other kind of
I mean,
stuff.
it kind of makes sense, right? Because a lot of the like alt-right reactionary kind of, especially 4chan pipeline with like Blackpill and everything, it's like responding to fundamentally being really socially not capable and very awkward and not grokking those sort of dynamics well and blaming
Mm.
all of that on woke. And then, but like once the fascism starts happening and you can no longer blame it on woke, then what do you do? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, for fascism writ large, then it's the classic cycle of like, well, the woke must be coming from inside the house, and we have to root out the woke and whatever.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
for the
yeah.
guys who aren't even really included in fascism proper, because they are just shut-ins, and they also like are furries or whatever, so they don't actually want to like destroy that culture. Like this
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
crucially, right? It's important to remember like he is absolutely the representative, the fucking senator for like racist femboys. Like
Mm.
if racist femboys seems like a strange phenomenon, Nick Fuentes makes it make sense because they have like a guy they organize around. Like
Yeah, yeah.
I found out
Yeah,
this is
and
also apparently kind of a thing in Poland as well. Like there's a big like femboy culture in Poland, and then obviously, the Polish politics is very right wing as well. So it's not an
I thought
isolated
Joe was
incident.
over in Poland, like talking at a renters union seminar. It turns out she was investigating the femboy culture, which like I'm proud of you, babe. That
Look,
makes
it
sense.
look, it
That's what I
came
would have
up. What
done.
can I
Yeah,
say?
yeah.
I'm a woman of
When in
culture.
Krakow.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No,
But yeah, no, I think that so the reason I thought this was a good like kind of lead into the what happened yesterday is that I think there's like so much spectacular politics going on with Tommy Robinson right now. Like it's all for the show. It's all for the views. It's all for like putting on a big show of stuff. Because like there's a perspective where you're like, okay, these guys are showing up wearing England flags as capes and they're drunk and it's midday and they're ready to fight cops. Like it is because they actually believe that if they can get Tommy Robinson to where Keir Starmer is, Tommy Robinson will punch him and then he'll become prime minister. Like
Mm.
some of
Yeah,
these
yeah.
guys I think do think that. But like yesterday was absolutely bizarre because like it was very specifically Christian nationalist.
Mm.
And that doesn't track to like what fascism in the UK like
hmm.
broadly looks like, I think. Like, I don't know, if you have a different take of this or Mule, like you obviously do a lot of
Well,
keeping
I
an eye on
also
the
just wanted
fash.
to point out like the Destiny Church contingent from New Zealand
yeah, I
was
did
fucking
mention
Is
this too.
hilarious.
it?
And it's so funny because it's like they're like, we want to, keep England, like we want to get the migrants out, or whatever. By the way, these guys have these these
Well,
guys have flown over from the South Pacific
well, this
to
is this
perform their cultural dance.
this
It's
is
like,
something that I really wanted to talk about. So just very sort of briefly, and you could
yeah.
probably attest to this, Joe. The last anti-fascist counter demonstration I went on was like probably February this year, and it was Nick Tenconi, and they had big wooden crosses, and they've started to go around with big wooden crosses, and there is talk of these guys getting funding from think tanks and stuff, and
Yeah.
like the theory, the working theory amongst most people who are doing a bit of intelligence on it are saying that, well, that's the sort of caveat. It's like, we'll give you money, but you have to also promote Christianity because you're not promoting Christianity enough. Then with that, we have yesterday what happened in terms of like the running order of who was speaking. Sophie put here that it was Katie Hopkins, Lawrence Fox, Steve Bannon, Joey Manorino. Steve Bannon didn't turn up, but they also had international speakers, like what
Say
you were saying,
I
Tim.
heard Musk was there, right?
Well, Musk
Oh,
was on a video link,
Oh, is it?
which
Okay.
is obviously just very easy for him. But interestingly enough, they had far right speakers from pretty much all over the world, pretty much all over the White West, to be honest. They had Chris Billboard from Canada, Eric Zemmour from France, talking about replacement theory. Belgian far-right politician Philip de Winter talking about Islam's
No!
real enemy. Yeah. Um, don't worry about that. It's fine. Shows no relation.
Ooh.
The Dutch far-right commentator Eva Vladingerbroek, whatever, delivered one of the day's most incendiary speeches, saying things like they are demanding the sacrifice of our children. Ada Kluch from Spain. Steve Bannon and Jordan Peterson were slated but didn't attend. Brian Tamaki, you know him, Tim, leader of the Destiny Church, was talking about this is a religious war, actually condemning not just Islam but Hinduism, Baha'i, Buddhism, literally everything. That's
He
not
condemns
Christianity.
absolutely everything and
Yeah.
anything, as long as it's inflammatory.
And
It's a
also,
condemner.
interestingly, like Hope Not Hate pointed this out as a key thing, like what Sophie was saying, and obviously what I've observed and what you've probably observed is that there were a number of bishops in attendance. So there was Bishop Dewar of the Confessing Anglican Church, and then there was Reverend Brett Murphy and the Right Reverend, or I guess like Right Honourable Reverend Dr. David Nichols from Morecambe in Lancashire. So these are people from like very like niche churches just in like the arse end of nowhere kind of thing. Very interesting that there's this like global thing, but like let's talk like specifically about this Christianification of the right and what you think.
Oh, that's kind of like, so I guess some important context. I wasn't there yesterday, and actually a lot of this, like the kind of more Christian element wing of it, wasn't as present in the demonstrations I've attended recently, which is really interesting. Not, I don't know if interesting is the right word. Yeah, bears some unpacking, certainly. I'm
I
not
don't think
entirely
the
surprised. Sorry, Sophie, you go.
I don't think the smaller demonstrations are usually like this, right?
No, they're not.
But
So
nothing I've seen.
no, yeah. So I was the most recent demonstration I've been at was it was a counter demo against. So I assume viewers slash listeners have been like somewhat following like the stuff around migrant hotels in the UK. I was in Epping. There were like a couple of hundred fascists, but they were mostly just like kind of like flag shaggers, like nothing particularly remarkable. Um, and also just there wasn't much direct contact because of a lot of the ways that that demonstration was organized, which like I can maybe get into in a bit. But
Yeah, that would be good.
it was it was all pretty much expected. I obviously, you know, like as we've seen with like some of the like the campaign against trans rights in the UK, obviously a lot of that's being bankrolled by like American like Christian nationalists. So it's not entirely surprising that that like crossover has been and connection is there with kind of, I guess, popular fascism as it exists in the UK. But yeah, this is news to me. So
Yeah, I think one of the key takeaways there is that it's not a uniform thing. And I think it lines up with, I think where we are empire-wise at the moment is Trump is, obviously being like, oh, Keir Starmer, he's a puppet that I can put my hand in. I'll get him to do whatever the fuck I want. Like increase 2% of defense spending. Keir Starmer agrees to do it straight away, without a shadow of a doubt. Talking about NATO responsibilities, think about Russia. You got to think about Russia, buddy. He's done all this stuff. I think that there is a coordinated attempt to Yankify the UK, and I think that explains the Christianity stuff. Like the problem. Like here's the problem. Like if that is what they're trying to do, it makes such little sense because the fascists in this country have for such a long time been like deeply anti-religious, like just completely apathetic, atheist, horrible piece of shit football hooligans. Like that's all they are. Like if you could describe a British fascist, it would be someone who doesn't believe in anything except for Britain. And this like idea of like what Britain is in his head, and it's nothing to do with
Absolutely.
Christianity. It's nothing to do, they'll say Saint George, but they think of a white guy in their head. They think of Jesus,
yeah.
they think of a white guy. But they're not interested in Jesus. They're just it's the king, it's the queen, it's all kind of rejections of religion, really. And their line for such a long time, for about God, since the Iraq War, their line since the Iraq War has been no, 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 we're not racist. We just don't like Islam. It's incompatible with the West. And I think that line is like it's born of this like atheistic new atheism kind of fascism. And I think that it will be quite hard for them to kind of shake that off. And I don't know how it was taken
Yeah,
by
like
the fascists yesterday.
I mean,
I
it's interesting because the like when you like the history of Islamophobia, when you look at how it's entered like kind of mainstream culture, was very much through like r religious rivalries in like the middle. I was going to
yeah.
say Middle Ages. I know that's not particularly historically descriptive at all. Sorry, Sophie, you were saying something.
Well, Mule, I think with this like idea, like what the working class British fascist looks like is an important thing for people not from Britain to understand is like a lot of disenfranchised guys who think that everything is just kind of reacting to polite society. And I really do mean polite society because I think that like the concept of having basic like manners towards people is like they think they're being very punk. That's a good way to put it, actually. Like they think that it's punk,
Mm,
just rebelling against. It's just a rebelling against, and like the the football hooligan kind of. I don't know if like the figure, the popular figure of the football hooligan in real life believes in nothing. Maybe like I could see them going for some like intense white pride. Like, I live relatively near to Millwall, the most fascist club in the country. Like these dudes definitely love them some white supremacy. But in
Yeah, that's what I was referring
on the
to.
like
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes scale, they're like much less, I think, trying to like I don't know. There were clips from guys yesterday who were like, "This country's lost its way. We need Christian morals." And I was like, "That's fascinating to me. That doesn't seem like a normal guy in that crowd."
No.
And if it is, that's a really strange turn things have taken.
Mm.
But getting to what I've been kind of like poking at here with what you were saying, Mule, the international speakers,
mm.
Joe, like you were saying, like smaller, like other protests, it's not usually looked like this. I think it's money. I think that like the money that is making that made the large scale protest possible in terms of they definitely would have paid those speakers,
Yeah.
right? And you
Oh
can
yeah.
tell because some of them they couldn't afford,
Yeah.
right? Like they were able to get Musk on a Zoom call because he's a fucking loser and he didn't even know anyone else was being paid.
Yeah.
Like, but Jordan Peterson absolutely has a massive speaker's fee and was not gonna do it for
Absolutely,
less than
yeah,
his stated
absolutely.
rate.
Yeah.
And same for Steve Bannon. And like, I think they could afford the other people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Especially when it's like the far right fucking main influencer of the Netherlands. You know what I mean? It's just like some random fucking
yeah,
bigot with
Yeah.
an
yeah.
Instagram account.
So I think this is a kind of a almost a production, and the question, is for who? Um, this isn't to say that like the threat of fascism is not looming in the UK. Like reform has taken a like huge chunk of the vote, and like just in terms of like immediate community defense, which is obviously where we're going with the conversation ultimately, like is actually about how we do the organizing to keep people safe directly. Like this stuff really fucking matters. I'm just
Mm.
like, I'm just a little bit like yesterday was horrifying to see in terms of scale, and a lot of people are going, talking about like it's a dark day for the left. A lot of people are finally, and I'm really glad to see this, saying stuff like if we're following big accounts who are leftist but they aren't aware this stuff is happening and aren't using their platforms to get people to go down and fucking do it, those people are useless. Like it's cool to see people
Yes.
saying that, because I've been saying for like half a decade now. But um, but I'm not saying like I think that this, the scale of yesterday, and for people who don't know, we haven't said it yet. The response was only about 20,000 strong, right? So
Uh,
massively outnumbered, right?
yeah.
Really grim. Like it yesterday does should be a kick up the pants for everyone, and we're going to talk, in the rest of the discussion about what needs to be done better for the love of God and urgently. Um, but at the same time, like, I kind of feel like it's a spectacle, and my personal feeling is it's for America. I feel like
Yeah.
they want to believe that the fascist takeover is going just as well everywhere else as it is in the US,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they have enough guys who think it's like punk to wear a swastika type guy, like, um, who can show up and will wear the England flag as a cape and throw a
I
beer bottle at a cop. But those guys aren't actually all ideologically committed Christo-fascists the
I
way that you
think
have in America.
this is a really good point, actually. Like, um, we tend to think about mobilization in general, but like I think in particular with regards to like street fascism as a single block,
Mhm.
there for the same reasons,
Yeah,
motivated by the same things.
yeah.
I think this is one of the big problems that actually I think the response to fascism has at the moment is like we're treating everyone as if they're like ideologically bought into the most hateful bigoted shit,
Mhm.
and I just don't think that it can't be true because if it were true, the numbers would have suddenly inflated massively out of nowhere, and I don't believe that's how that works.
This is
Yeah.
yeah. This is true because I've made a habit of looking at these guys who are streaming this stuff like from the fascists' point of view. Because there's a lot of telling things that you can learn when you watch their streams, and obviously it's very difficult to get through. It's obviously a lot easier for me, for someone who looks like me, to like listen to that stuff and go through it, which is again a great case for allyship. But if you want to do a bit of intelligence, you can watch these guys' streams and take very, very careful note of the things that they say. Because if
I've
you,
got a
yes,
Sorry, you go. I'll let you finish, and
no,
then
no,
I'll say
no,
my.
go for it. I'll
Oh, I've
remember.
got a doozy of a fascist streamer to point you to after this.
Okay.
Um,
You could say him now if you want.
I would rather not because it's
Okay.
involved in some things that I
Mule, what are
Oh,
you
won't
okay.
going
talk
on
about in
to?
public.
So what? Yeah. So what I was going to say is that I watched this one Mancunian fascist streamer called Hugh Anthony, and you could see at the BNP rally in Manchester, which was also a surprising turnout of about 1,000 people. You could see our sort of ideas kind of just like locking together. It started to all make sense because every single person he was talking to had like a southerner accent or a far north accent, and I
Right.
was like, okay, the majority of people here are not Manx, and the
Mm.
majority of people here who are quote unquote Manx are what some people call Yonners, which are like people from Wigan and Glossop and these towns that are sort of out of the way. And of course, it makes sense that people would be fascist if they live in those areas because they're maybe petty bourgeois, retired people. Like it was a lot of
Just never
old.
met a black guy in their life. Yeah.
Literally, never met a trans
Yeah.
person, never met a black person,
Mm-hmm.
and these people were overwhelming. Like the crowd at that fascist rally in Manchester, it was overwhelming. It had to be 60% over 50. It had to be
Yeah.
because every other person you saw was just like grey hair, very
Yeah.
old. They're not doing any fighting. Do you know what I mean? Some of them might be, but the younger people were the people who were being the most violent, but they were a minority. The other thing that I noticed is that a lot of the people there were actually extremely vulnerable. This one guy just like let this random person just come up to the mic and he was going, yes brother, you say what you like, and then literally unedited, didn't cut any of it out, completely insane for about 5 minutes. This guy was literally going, they're not letting us practice Christianity in the UK, and they want to get out, and you'll be in
Yeah.
jail if you say if you say a prayer or a psalm or something like that. And he was just going on and on and on and on, and it was like this guy is unwell. Like he has been strung along by some fucking fash who were just like, this is what you've got to do, mate.
Absolutely.
Get down to this on Friday. Get down to this on Friday. So that's kind of where I'm at with this stuff. It looks like it does kind of look like there is this this broad coalition of
Yeah.
but I think it's good to like have a look at that from the these fast streamers points of
Yeah.
views.
It's absolutely the same over here. You get whenever there is some kind of right wing or pro Israel kind of rally or anything like that, there's like the same things where it's like, okay, there's the woman that organizes like the press tours for journalists to go to Israel. There's the guy who is well known for like threatening police officers and everything on his YouTube stream. There's the woman that's been arrested multiple times for stalking trans people. And it's just like, like it's like this like increasingly more deranged, and it's like they all have this one thing in common. Whereas like I feel like when you go to a left wing rally over here, it's like people are like, okay, we all have these issues, but we know, like, for instance, like Palestine is this wedge issue and all our things intersect this. Whereas like over on, like the cursed side, they're more kind of just like, we're just like all a bunch of crazy people that are broadly like, like we're opposed to
Mm.
the left in some way, but our causes don't necessarily intersect, and some of us aren't even like we're obviously unwell, but we're working together because our our views kind of like
Mm.
somewhat simpatico. But yeah, it's
I mean, I guess
interesting.
like slightly accepting potentially recent events, I do feel like that's one of the ways in which the fascists are often able to outmaneuver us is that they're quite happy to work together, even if they're not in total ideological lockstep.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whereas I can't speak to context outside of London particularly,
Mm,
but um, the degree to which people like will immediately be like, no, we can't work with them because they don't believe in the exact brand of anarchism or communism that we
yeah.
believe in, or like we have this one piece of beef that happened like 5 years ago, and we can't possibly get past that because
Yeah,
they're the
yeah.
ones that need to say sorry.
Mm,
Um, is and like like I'm being a bit reductive, to be fair. Like
yeah.
there are, I think, legitimate grievances between some left groups for good reasons, some of which we will
Yeah,
get into perhaps. But
that's that's what I would like to talk about now. It's so funny you would talk about legitimate grievances with some left groups because I'd like to talk about the SWP. Yay!
oh
Everyone was
boy,
looking at SWP again.
I loved the amount of time I spend talking about the SWP. It's very cool.
Mm,
Oh, great. So I like. Uh, I'll give my view on what I think is going on with anti-racist organizing in London and the
Hmm.
SWP,
Hmm.
and then you can just tell me where you think if you think I'm wide of the mark on anything, and then your other thoughts, right? So I
Yep.
think that the SWP, uh, partly out of I guess some kind of hope that uh, some kind of strategic position that having lots of little groups makes them appear kind of more grassroots and less donor funded. They have a lot of what people call fronts. And arguably, it's also because SWP has a stinky reputation that everyone hates, and so they have other orgs, you know, arguably. But like, I think that it's probably a strategic thing to like try to have orgs that are dedicated to specific issues, and kind of be in the movement more. And so they have Stand Up to Racism, which is like these guys are at like pretty much every big thing, like with banners that have a Socialist Workers Party like logo on them that just are like Stand Up to Racism. Tommy, we don't. London is against Tommy Robinson or whatever like this, and they want to bring bigger numbers, and that's their kind of like their best thing they think they can do. Their approach to anti-fascism appears to be go to where the place is, stay perfectly within the police cordons, say some speeches about how racism is bad, near-ish to the guys who will never believe you, especially if you seem like more respectable, and then go home. And yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to criticize, obviously.
It's just I think the
Um,
main thing is it's just historically not what has been done to counter fascism.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So I think to wrap up my view on what they do, like when it gets to a bigger scale, I've been involved in some of these, like not organizing at all, but like, just the being at them. Like
Hmm.
when there are bigger things like a Tommy Robinson rally, usually their supposedly opposing march is just a march with opposing views that happens on the same day in the same city. Like the police don't want them to intersect because they don't want people fighting, so they just keep them apart. And it's like I don't think this stopped fascism reaching anyone. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay, that's my view on them, I
So
think,
I have
broadly.
a few thoughts.
Mm,
First of which I think is maybe some like additional context on why the SWP work the way they do and the fact they have all these different organizations.
go
I've
ahead.
heard it said by a comrade who at one point was in the SWP, that like a very explicit part of their strategy is trying to build a united front, and therefore having loads of groups that are nominally concerned with more specific issues that are also like within a larger umbrella organization is their way of trying to pull together the disparate strands of organizing into a larger revolutionary force. In terms of how stand up to racism actions operate, I broadly agree again. I think that one of the big things I noticed was, and have noticed both at that action, but also like having spoken to comrades from like various stand up to racism branches, is the quite reductive understanding that they have of what this current wave of fascism is motivated by and who these people are. In their mind, they're just like people who are ideologically racist and like should be discarded by, like they're not their model of engaging with people doesn't account for trying to change anyone who already thinks this is mind, which I think is fundamentally just about point who are you talking to? Like
the it's
I
it feels like the fascists have done a fairly successful job so far of getting Epping, right, is a very
yes,
popular
yeah,
example. Getting into the Epping community and getting people around there riled up about the
yeah,
hotel and showing up to protest the hotel. And I, again, live fairly near to Millwall, the most fascist football club in the country. And I don't think that the guy whose house still has the flag with King Charles's face in it, like from Coronation Day, and he's kept that up. I don't think if I door knock, like I'm going to persuade him. I don't think
no,
if I don't think if someone who looks like Mule door knocks, they're going to persuade him, like not to be a racist. But there are definitely some guys who like I don't know go for a beer with him sometimes, and he's said a bunch of bullshit to them about refugees, and they've shown up to this thing, and they could be
right?
persuaded for sure. I reckon. I yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. So for some
Mm.
context, I do a lot of housing organizing. One of the things that we sometimes use when kind of thinking strategically is this thing called a spectrum of allies. So this is a thing where you kind of map out various actors across like, whatever spectrum you're trying to look at. For us, it's normally housing, but you can very easily apply this to like fascist or racist sentiment, I guess. And within that, you have, like you've got people who are hardline agree with you, like ideologically in lockstep, ideally acting alongside you. At the other side, you've got like people who are completely ideologically bought into something that you find abhorrent and you can't possibly cooperate with. But those are very much extremes, and it's pretty much a normal distribution, right? Like the vast majority of people are going to be somewhere in the middle and like don't necessarily have an opinion either way, or if they do, it's just informed by like what the people who they know in their lives say and talk about and what like kind of makes sense to them based on like occasionally interacting with this stuff. And given that we're living in a country that's undergone what, like coming up on 20 years of austerity, right? Like, okay, no, that's a 15 or so. Regardless,
Might as well
there's
be
a
fucking
lot of
20. It
yeah, no,
feels like
there's a
30.
exactly. There's a lot of shit that's not fucking working. There's no community spaces, there's no healthcare provision, you can't get a GP appointment. Schools are like I spoke to some teachers recently. It sounds bad. Um Everything it's Britain, everything sucks. We all know this. Except maybe I mean Tim, you hear about it a lot, I suppose. Um Calciprate, but like as you know, they're looking for reasons, things to explain what they're experiencing, and because the fascia like frankly just being kind of normal about it in a way that the left aren't, because with it like can be very preachy and like have the like strength of conviction like rooted in like fundamental moral belief, that sometimes means you can get a bit like aggressive about trying to prove people wrong if they think the wrong bad thing, um which is not necessarily a compelling argument to someone who's just trying to, like just trying to vibe. I don't know.
No, I think that's a great take. I think that's completely right. I think
Yeah,
that's the main
yeah.
reason why I have decided to go back into GMTU member solidarity stuff because um, the unfortunate reality, and I think that housing activism has got a big part to play here because the biggest
No one
thing
can
that
see
people,
that.
sorry,
I was
what?
I was doing it. I was. Don't worry. No one can. I forget this is also an audio
We
medium.
can describe it for the podcast
I
listeners.
was doing a
Joe was doing
a
it.
consensus decision making thing because I'm a dork.
Doing the thing that you do in a meeting where you're not allowed to speak,
Yeah,
but it says that you
yeah.
agree.
When they play the weekly new episode of Red Planet at the New York DSA caucus, like that, it only counts as one listen in our Spotify feed, but they play it to like 10,000 members.
They do, yeah.
That joke is gonna kill, I promise.
Everyone's gonna pop the fuck off.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's why I got into housing activism because unfortunately, the biggest lie that the far right talks about at the moment is they are housing foreigners and not our own.
Yeah.
And I think that that is the biggest key thing that people are fucked off about. In the
Yes.
Yeah.
UK, we have I don't need to tell anyone on this podcast, and maybe anyone listening to this podcast, but if you didn't know, we have one of the worst private landlord scourges. It is not a housing crisis, it is a private investor buy-to-let mortgage
Mm.
market nightmare housing crisis, which is caused by landlords. It's caused by the banks enabling landlords to exist. If you are just in that like extra bracket of privileged society, you could get a buy-to-let mortgage, you could become a landlord. Boom, you don't have to do any work because you could do whatever fucking like I was watching on my stream recently, I'm watching that horrible show Nightmare Tenant Slum Landlords. Obviously, they completely showcase zero slum landlords and all completely demonized and dehumanized tenants who are suffering at the hands of these landlords. And like some of these people were saying that they were charging £3 grand a month for a 2-bed townhouse in Notting Hill, but this was in 2018. And it's like, okay, Notting Hill has always been expensive, but 2018, £3 grand, even if it is like current price or whatever like that, even if that's accurate for the time, the mortgage would have been £800 a month, you know, £800 a month. And that would be at the sort of like lowest end of the spectrum that you could go to get a buy-to-let mortgage. And so it's like it's just so obvious that like that is where people's frustrations are. No one has any security. No one people are thinking about the bills. People are thinking about everything. They don't have time to think about politics. And like when they get that moment, like literally the 3 or 4 hours in a week where they could go to the pub and just chat rubbish with the mates. You've got fucking knobhead Darren
Yeah.
being like, they're coming here taking our gaffs and that. And it's like, that's why we need to get in communities and be like, yo, it's not that. It's the landlords.
And it's
And
like,
yeah,
it's really frustrating, right? Because the whole reason that this is even a thing, especially like if we take the like housing migrants in hotels, for instance, like the only reason that's even happening in the first place is because they're not allowed to work while
exactly.
their application's under consideration. So it's very much constructed. But like if if you're paying a lot for your housing, you can't really afford like or like you're on a waiting list for council housing and you can't get it because no one can get council housing because we've sold off all social homes and we're not building any new ones. And you find out that people's needs are being met for in a way that yours probably should be too, but aren't. I can understand how you're like, well, that's not fair. I don't agree. I think that everyone should probably be housed
Yeah.
for free anyway. But like it's
Well, like
slowly catchy monkey. You gotta get them there.
If
if
you
you
are
have
in,
that
yeah,
emotional basis and then Knobhead Darren like shows you on his phone at the pub like next week, like this thing happened, this a migrant attacked a young girl or something,
yeah,
right? Like any cherry picked little things that can like eat away at like, clearly is, and it like bit by bit you wind up being one of the guys who's in one of the clips yesterday saying like they're sending it's only men, it's only males, they're all army age. I think they're making an army. I think there's thousands of them coming every single day. There's millions have come across on small boats and it's an army and they're invading. And it's like this person didn't get there all at once.
no,
And they're and And this person's pretty far gone. I'm going to be real. Like, I don't
Yeah,
think
yeah,
this person, until there is massive social change, is coming out of that hole.
yeah,
That
yeah.
No
that
way. Yeah.
person's not
Well, that's
not
like
having a. It's
the
not like an
classic
effective
thing.
strategy for us to try to do the hope not hate thing and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
individually get all those guys. But there are
Like
guys yet that we can still get to, right?
yeah, yeah. It's like the classic kind of like, like the whole like deprogramming thing where it's like it's not something that a stranger can really do. It has to be done by people that do have like these strong relationships with that person that is, deep down that rabbit hole. Like it has to be, and it's like a long-term project. It's not just like, it's not like, oh, like I met a brown guy and he was actually quite nice.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
doesn't happen like that. It happens like over, yeah, a really long time of friends and family, and just being taken out of the environment where people are like reinforcing these ideas and all that kind of stuff. It's like,
Mm.
yeah, and I feel like there there has to be a like I think there has to be a discussion about that in organizing circles, because a lot of people, I think, romanticize that idea of like we're gonna like debate these people out of these views or whatever like that. And like I mean, we've all on the stream we've talked about it for since we started, about how like that was literally the thing when we started the stream. We were like, we don't want to be a debate stream. We don't,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's the opposite of what we want. And I think it's like, even just like like these kind of debates usually just end up kind of making people knuckle down and increasing those kind of shitty
The
yeah, yeah,
behaviors.
reason
yeah.
the reason we don't debate is because we understand it to be seeding ground to fascists, right? If you debate a
Mm.
fascist,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
you are saying these ideas are
Mm.
worth discussing.
exactly, yeah.
But that's if you do it in like a public setting where it's
Mm,
someone that you've gotten to know over a long time. Like, most of the people that I have like a deep relationship with because of tenant union activity, like I could go to the Harper Hay branch meeting tomorrow and everyone would be like, Mule, oh my God, it's so good to see you. Like we see each other as comrades, even though
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not the word that we use for it, right? Because we understand that we're all in it together. That's the solidarity that we built, the understanding that we built. Everybody knows what it's about, etc., yada yada. And there's people in that branch who have like an apolitical, basic understanding of politics. And I'm not
Oh
being
Yeah.
yeah.
offensive if any of you are watching or listening. Obviously, I love you to death, and I'm not focusing on anyone in particular. But there are people that I've come across, not just in that branch, but also in various places, in Manchester, where they are just like you have to understand, like, I think a lot of the time we could be a bit privileged sometimes and forget that like most people don't have enough time to like sit there and figure all this stuff out. And if you are just someone who like you've got like three kids, you go turn on the telly, it's Love Island, whatever, like you're
Yeah,
watching, I'm not throwing shade on what people watch or anything, but like that's the kind of life you have. Like you just watch telly and like go, oh my God, and then you have to pick up after the kids, yada yada yada, do all this reproductive labor. If you are just like, oh yeah, well I saw a post and that's your politics, like that is how that happens. But if you have a friend who goes, whoa, 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 listen, like one of the most really frustrating things that I've just been so mad at, and this has been happening, I don't know how long this has been happening for, but it's clearly been happening for the last 5 years. What they don't talk about is the fact that, because all the rhetoric is it's only the illegals, everyone else who's working, like that's fine. And it's like there are no legal routes. No one is saying this. No journalist is saying this. No journalist is
mm,
pushing back and going, it's
Mm.
actually, there are no legal routes. You know that every single asylum seeker who comes here is illegal. You know that, right?
Mhm.
But and then like it would be interested to see the response, because then it would be like, oh, we'll get rid of them
Mm.
all then.
Mm.
And then the conversation gets interesting. But it's like this is
Mm.
this frustrating thing. And if you sit with like John fucking Tenants Union or whoever, and you just have like a frank conversation, like, okay, like how do you think like people get legal asylum here in the UK? How do you think that happens in it? And they'll go, oh, they'll probably apply while they're abroad. Right, where are they doing that? Oh, they're doing it at home. Yeah, but the home got blown up. Well, they could go to a mate's. No, the mate's got blown up. No, the wife got their entire family bloodline got erased, John. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, where are they going? Oh well, they'll have to go and go another country. Yeah, exactly, dickhead. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's where the conversation just becomes real, and people are like, oh right, you know what I mean? I've seen it happen. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's being involved in community organizing where that stuff happens.
So, Joe, how can anti-fascists in London approach the issue of community outreach? Because I think this is a really core element here.
So there's like a couple of problems that I see that I think it's worth talking about. The first is that like I live in central London, so like not central, but like we don't live in Epping, we don't live in Orpington, we don't live in the places where these protests are happening.
Bromley or
That's
whatever,
what
yeah.
that's one of the issues I think is that it's very easy for anyone who wants to make the argument against anything we're doing that we're just like the metropolitan elite coming in, they don't live here, they don't understand our issues, and they're not entirely wrong. But I think that fundamentally relates to like the other issues, which is that um, all of the anti-fascist organizing that we're doing right now, anything that isn't this like organizing that's rooted in communities, is fundamentally reactive, right? Like I went out to Epping in response to the fascists calling this mobilization in a world where we were actually like, taking this shit seriously and like, I think we're doing it effectively. We would have had people knocking doors in the week before that protest, or like, like doing a stall, or like fucking running a breakfast club, being like, you know, providing for people's needs, having a chat while they do it.
Bingo.
Um, so yeah, like for me, I think, especially given the connection to housing, any form of like tenants organizing you can do in areas that seem like they are starting to go in this direction. And I don't know entirely how we start to like catch that in the bud and like are able to recognize it before it starts happening beyond just like, I don't know, thinking about the constituencies of people that already live there and whether they like meet the criteria we've identified as likely to be susceptible to this rhetoric. Um, and you got to be out there, on the streets doing stuff, not just posting. Um, I feel like we kind of moved on from it a little bit, but like I could talk a bit more in specifics about like some of the like ways in which stand up to racism, I think in particular, have been kind of shit. There's an article I also think is just a good summary of a lot of it that we could maybe
Yeah, tell us about it, but definitely also like, by contrast, what you think the right direction is.
Yeah, so I mean, like I think these what I'm going to talk about with regards to what they did, I think paints a good picture of why I therefore think we should do a lot of the stuff I've just like outlined. Um, but so like in the run up to the action in Epping, I was like weirdly optimistic about it. Like I don't have like I haven't heard great things about the SWP or Stand Up to Racism. I wasn't particularly inclined to think it was going to be great, but in the week beforehand, I'd seen like I think more Black Bloc people trying to like organize some form of resistance to the fashion mobilization. And that pretty clearly seemed doomed to fail just because it wasn't a public mobilization, and anything that wasn't a public mobilization wasn't going to get the numbers in order to actually be able to oppose, I didn't think. So when I found out they'd done that, I was like, okay, sure. If this is the only thing they do for the left ecosystem, then that's fine. That's all they need to do. The issue was they maintained incredibly tight control over how everything played out on the day and all the decision making, and made I think pretty consistently bad decisions. So we arrived at like, oh god, what was it? We arrived like 2. The Fash were due to get to the hotel at 3. Um, Instead of it took an hour to get there from where we assembled for one, which wasn't really communicated and would have been great to know. I think a lot of people weren't expecting to walk that far. Everyone was quite tired, which just isn't accessible. But that's but they prioritize like speeches at the meeting point as over getting to the place where the Fash were actually going to be. In a way that kind of just seemed like they were there for what they clearly like weren't as concerned with actually making sure anyone in the hotel was okay, which at the very least was why I had turned out. Um, like if we're not actually trying to make sure people are okay, what are we doing? We clearly don't care that much.
Yeah, it's bizarre to me how many people I've seen who are talking about the various contingents of people who are at threat from fascism and just don't mention the asylum seekers who they are trying to burn to death. Like it's
Yeah.
bizarre.
So we spend an hour walking. We get there to like a neat little pen that the cops have set out for us. um, and like move into that with help from the private security that Stand Up to Racism have apparently hired to help shepherd this thing, which like I don't that must have cost them a lot of money and they were doing a cop's job for them. It just felt bad. Um, we stayed there for like 20 minutes, then left because they made the call to leave. In that time, all of the chants were like calling them Nazis, telling them to kill themselves like Hitler did, which is like I don't think particularly compelling as a like counter narrative. You know, like if you're on the other side of those fences, you're not gonna. Oh, I think they have a point. I might do. No, it's like it's nothing. Like if you're
Yeah, but
gonna
I
be
think that
shouting,
that kind of work
I
is surely work to do before the protest. Like I think at that
agreed.
point,
But
okay.
like it I guess what I'm saying is like, and I don't like there's the article that I will mention after this. Like I think talks about this as well and like points out like who protects the fascists, police protect the fascists as something else along those lines. And I don't agree with that one quite so much. Like there's obviously you need to be able to maintain energy when you're opposing people who have the potential to do violence to you and like so this like civility politics. There's a lot to unpack here, but like I think that in particular the stuff just calling them Nazis kind of felt a bit dead because I don't think they are Nazis, right? Like they're not I don't think they are bought in the way that that like these chances suggesting they are, and all it does is like heighten the division, which in when you need to try to change some of these people's minds in order to hopefully stop this, doesn't feel productive. I don't know. There's not an easy answer for what you do, what the messaging should be. I don't think uh, it's an unresolved question I have as to like what the most effective way to do that is, but I don't think that that was it. Um, on the way back, they also actively tried to prevent an attempt to de-arrest a comrade, which I mean, it remains to be like that comrade may still have been arrested if that was the case, or if that wasn't the case, if they hadn't been doing that. But like that's pretty fundamental to my solidarity. Is if someone's being arrested, you should probably try and stop them being arrested. Um, and having people actively work against that kind of destroys any trust I had in them, to be honest. So it's like a yeah,
Yeah, deploying hired security for this kind of thing that essentially are just acting as cops to your own protesters is completely insane to me.
I do think the hiring security speaks to another issue that like current state of anti-fascism has, which is how often we're outnumbered, right? Um, and if you're showing up to a place where there's always people who are like probably the most willing to do violence of anyone that we're likely to encounter, it's hard to convince people to want to turn up in that situation because no one wants to get their shit kicked in. Um, and also like there has to be some form of space that isn't black bloc fighty because there's a lot of people who can't or don't want to
Yeah.
engage in that way for whatever, you can't bring kids along to that. And I think a popular anti-fascism wants to have kids there. It wants to have the entire community there. It wants to mobilize society as a whole against this.
Yeah.
And so you clearly need some form of way of guaranteeing safety in numbers in some capacity, and I think that looks like just like mobilizing better
Yeah.
and not hiring private security. But
Yeah.
I think still, like given that the action yesterday, people were so severely outnumbered. Like I've had comrades say, don't really fucking like the police, but like there have been times at recent anti-fascist protests where it did actually feel like the cops were protecting them because it was them or the fash, and that's also feels quite counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
If we're engineering situations where people are like, oh, actually, by no means you got to hand it to them, but the cops did a good thing that
Yeah.
this one time.
I do
which-
want to like yeah, sort of like give you a total agreement in what you were saying before about the messaging and the way that some people do. I think that what happens with a lot of anti-fascist counter demonstrations is that you do get a lot of very well-meaning, but probably before going to an anti-fascist counter demonstration have probably just been like a mostly online leftist, and they've seen all the memes, they've seen punch a fascist, punch Nazis, shoot Nazis, etc., and they think, right, okay, what I'm gonna do, I've heard stories of comrades of mine who've been in Manchester for years, and they like go to the local anti-fascist organizing thing, and you've got like 20-year-olds who are in university. They're white. They're from the fucking home counties, and they're like, let's throw some fucking paint on them and shit. And it's like, you're just gonna get people arrested. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, I know that sounds really fun and like cool, and yeah, no, it would be if it was like, because we're not in that. Yeah, I mean, it's tough now because I feel like we are transitioning into that. So I don't want to say we're not at the point where there are street gangs going around doing pogroms. It's certainly turning that corner at this moment, especially with what happened to that Sikh girl the other day. And I think that it's really important that that level of reaction politics, where you are looking to like scare fascists out of your area by any means necessary, that is when they are doing things like what they were doing in the 80s. That's what anti-fascist action was. It was a response to fascist street gangs going around lynching black people and Pakistani people, basically. And I'm not saying that we should wait for that response, but it's like we're not at that stage. You know what I mean? We're not quite there yet. Like, there's certainly been like the corner has turned, and maybe it is now time to start thinking about shit. Is there going to have to be some kind of what they call chasseurs du scan, the French guys with the communists with the bats and shit like that. Obviously, I would never advocate for violence or anything like that.
Sick vibe.
Yeah, it's a cool vibe, but don't break the law. Maybe that is what some people will do, but I think that you're right. I think that messaging just has to be like, at this point, if there's people there who are like, I've seen journalists speaking to people at the march yesterday, and they were saying, "Why were you here? Do you support like?" And because they were lefty journalists, they said, "Do you not think a wealth tax would resolve some of the issues that you're talking about?" Because obviously some of these guys were saying things like, I can't afford to save money to buy a home. I can't afford to, I've got 2 jobs. I can't afford this, etc., etc. There was a lot of young people who were saying that stuff. And when this lefty journalist was saying, if there was a wealth tax, would you support it? They were like, yeah. And it's like, that's how fucking easy it is, actually. If we're talking about like there's like a young contingent of people who support reform and they're giving it all this energy. That's how you get them. Like, and I also do want, like, again, electoral politics is not our game here, but finally there is like movement in the Green Party to make like an eco-socialist alternative. Like, Zach Polanski's messaging has been extremely good, and as long as it remains solid, and even improves in some areas, then there will be people who go, oh, this guy's speaking a lot of sense, actually, and he's from left field, not necessarily left wing, but kind of out of nowhere. People will not have been expecting him if they're not involved in the left and shit like that, and I think that he, represents a decent alternative to and what we're getting. Literally, what's happening is socialism and barbarism are both going. We've met in the fucking middle here, and now
the contradictions are sharpening. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think that that's the sort of key takeaway from all of it. Right?
I think I've seen a lot of people like being kind of like, not to get too sucked into parliamentary politics. I've seen a lot of people being like a little bit dismissive of Polanski. I continue to find him quite. I don't know if refreshing is the right word, but I think it's just the fact that like he's very much built his whole campaign and messaging to be the Farage killer, which is like really what we need at this moment, I think. And it's nice to see that someone recognizes the threat, I guess. Yeah,
not just Farage, but also Labour. Like, he's been in.
No, that's true.
Like at his election speech, he was like, "Yeah, our message to Labour is we're not here to run against you. We're here to replace you." And it's like, yeah, like any decent left-wing alternative would say that. But yeah, no, and again, like it has to come with organizing as well. Like, it has to be, we can't just like sit back and be like, oh yeah, just give the Green Party money, that'll solve everything. Like, no, you have to. It's like a variety of things need to happen. So yeah, I think that's it. I think your message is pretty spot on. Your analysis, Joe.
Thank you. I try. I spend a lot of time thinking about this. Because I don't know, I don't have much going on, I guess. Solidarity, Conrad.
Do we feel that, like, what do we feel like is the ideal response event to like people at the hotels who are trying to burn stuff down? Like, is it, I mean, if they're rioting, I think it's pretty fairly obvious that like big black bloc presence who are like driving
Yeah.
them off would be everyone's preferred possible thing, but like the nature of anti-fascism is that we want to like overwhelm with such superior numbers that there isn't violence in the first place, like before getting to the point of beating their ass. Like we want a
Hmm.
society where people know they will get their ass beat for being a racist, and so whatever. Like I don't know, is it, is it like street party barbecue sound
Yes.
system and the kids are there and everyone's there celebrating having asylum seekers nearby? Like what do we
I
I
think?
think it is that, and that's generally just because I saw this weekend also what happened is a fascist Irish party in Belfast called Clan Éireann, which just means Irish clan or I think Irish family.
Just saw the videos about these guys.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's great. Like look it up, look it up. You will fucking love it. It's cathartic as fuck because it's not Black Bloc doing
mm,
this shit. It's not any kind of big organization. There are fascists who just like went down the wrong street in West Belfast and everyone came out of the doors and just started battering them. Like that was all it was. Like, with sticks and everything, like just really like they're not going back out. They're never going back to that gaff in a million years. And I think that that is like, obviously I'm not saying that we should create communities where that happens, and very, very naughty, oh my gosh, I clutch my pearls and wring my hands at you, people of West Belfast. But yeah, that'll come across really good from an English guy, won't it? But like, I think, you know, if we have that response where like at least everybody could come out of their doors and go, fuck off. Like just piss off. Like fuck off, you fucking win it. We don't want you here. I would personally say that would be my ideal place. What about you, Joe?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and like, so one of the things that we kind of actually, to be fair, I didn't hear because like the way that we were set up, there was enough of a distance that we couldn't really hear their sound system. Also, we were very loud, but they were like playing ABBA and shit. And it kind of made me realize like I don't really know like what um like presumably they just go to the like have a chill one at the pub, and like we need to find a way to be in those spaces and not start a fight. I feel like and obviously, there are a lot of like I wouldn't feel safe doing that. A lot comrades who are racialized probably wouldn't feel safe doing that. It kind of does feel like the onus is on like the cis white men comrades to like, and it feels weird because like obviously it has the potential to go sour and be quite unpleasant, but like I don't really, if we want to change minds in the way that we clearly need to, then we need to engage with people as people, and that requires some vulnerability on your part. And the
Yeah.
potential and like the openness to be able to like hear what they're saying and like take that in and like, you know, uh
It feels it
like
feels
I,
quite like go on, sorry.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm a young gay queer woman who fundamentally I don't have a lot of crossover with a lot of the people who are turning out on the other side. So it's I guess a little hard for me to know what they do in their spare time, but like presumably they also like karaoke. I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of like what
Yeah.
what what are like the classic Britcore like I think like yeah, Street Party is a good example of one that like isn't
Yeah, yeah.
that is sober, for instance. But
I think
like
that like I think it shouldn't all be conceived of as like trying to get to the people who are convinced or semi-convinced already of this stuff. I think that like some of it, community outreach should obviously mean people in the community who are already pissed off about the fascists and just don't have a thing to organize around. But I think the issue of like they have a chill one in the pub is a more complicated cultural issue, especially in London, definitely in urban centers, definitely in like, what we identify as like the metropolitan university
mhm,
woke
mhm,
left. It's
mhm.
just like people treating activism as kind of like a portfolio career situation where they need to be doing things with like three orgs at once to show that they're like really, really good at activism and doing really like well acting and being in with the cool people who do the activism. And then like they're either the relaxation part of this is either people go on the sesh together, which is fine, is great. Or people are just really super fucking busy because they're working really hard to
Hmm.
like try
Hmm.
and live their actual life and earn enough money to survive and also basically build up like a CV of activism. And yeah, I think there just is not enough organizing that is letting, I guess, letting common time to relax and exist be the actual ultimate end goal
Yeah.
of the organizing, like building stronger community time and spaces, events and stuff, just because we know it would be good for community cohesion against evil shit, you know?
Yeah, and I think like why I was kind of like leaning towards the like what are the leisure things that you can do to try and attract people is because I'm a sicko if I see an event that's like, you know, a community meeting against fascism in our neighborhood. I'm the sort of person that will go to that, right? But like the sort of people who go to that are not the sort of people who we need to be reaching. We need to be bringing people into something that they want to go to because it just
Yeah.
sounds like a nice time
Mm,
and having
exactly.
those
Yeah.
conversations while you're there, as opposed to like
Yeah.
preemptively sequestering yourself away from the rest of society.
Yeah. Because I
Mm.
also see like events being done by some people who are in that sort of social scene or whatever, but the event is like the aesthetic of the event, the skin put over it, you know, the paint job given to what is otherwise just a music gig.
Mm,
Is that like we're the most radical and we like hate the
Yeah.
police and we like love like killing cops or whatever, and it's like, but do you like
yeah.
Yeah.
I went to the front line and actually nobody there knew you whatsoever,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone who did said that like your partner gets in a bunch of fights and gets everyone in danger at anti-fascist marches.
I sure
But
am glad
the
that you're not vague posting right now.
no, it's a hypothetical example. But like I think that
No one does
like
this in real life. What are you talking
no one
about?
no one would be that dumb in real life. Um,
Um,
but the like there are events that are like trying to do it's left branding events, and I think
no, for
that like
sure.
just yeah we need actually stuff that is much more like left, it's leftist in spirit and in understanding that like community is leftist and achieves our goals and more
Yeah.
community is the revolution we want kind of thing,
One
I
of the
guess.
one of the biggest things that I have noticed in community organizers, particularly like racialized community organizers who have a history of organizing, in racialized communities over issues like racism and stuff like that, have all literally spoken about the things that we are mentioning here today.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like this is where I get this stuff from. This is where, that's what it means, right?
exactly.
Listen to people who are on the front lines of it. It's kind of like the Charlie Kirk stuff, right? It's kind of like you see like a bunch of white creators being like, no, 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 don't celebrate his death. And it's like, do you know what this man said about black people? Like,
Yeah.
do
Do you
you
know what he
know
said
the
about trans
things?
people?
Do you know what he
Just
said
like
about trans
any,
people?
if you want to
Any
complain to
minority.
any trans
Yeah.
person who is celebrate whatever, okay.
Yeah, no,
I think we should
exactly. Yeah.
I think we should wrap up the conversation. So any kind of final thoughts from the panel, from anyone got any kind of final takes?
I wanted to just mention because I think that this is like a key. There's like a key thing that's happened at the Tommy Robinson protest this
Mm.
weekend that I think bears mentioning. I don't know if we did mention it, but basically there is a far right Zionist influencer called Avi Yemeni who was there
Yeah.
at the
Australian
protest.
guy. Wow.
Yeah, and
Israeli
he
dude that's based in Australia. Yeah.
yeah. And he got yelled at by a fash white supremacist, like for being Jewish, basically,
Yeah, of
basically
course.
like
Yeah, he's a figure.
anti-Semitically kicked out of the protest, even though he was supporting Israel, and there were loads of Israel flags all over the place. So there is a clear contingent and infighting between the support of Israel in this movement. So it's
That's
interesting that
interesting.
there appears to be a drive to push this like Judeo-Christian Yankee value bullshit.
Mm.
The second thing that I wanted to say was that um, Sargon of Akkad was there, Carl Benjamin. No, that's not
Yeah,
the
I
second
saw
thing I
some of
mentioned.
Haven't
that.
heard that name in a long time.
That isn't
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
second thing I wanted to say. I just wanted to mention because I knew everyone would enjoy that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I
What
like thinking about him.
Yeah, it's good to think about someone that evil. There was a person, and this is on camera. You can see this. There's clips of this on Twitter. There was a guy who, when asked by a conspiracy channel called Resistance GB, he was filmed, and he said that, what do you think we should do to make Britain great again, or something along that nature. And this random person was like, yeah, I'm a former criminal, apparently. I spent 25 years in prison, but basically Keir Starmer needs to be assassinated and someone needs to shoot Keir Starmer. and then this guy...
Former criminal. Current
Hold
criminal
up, hold
too.
up, let him
Former.
and then the guy that was interviewing him said, "We're not endorsing assassination," and the guy just went, "I am. Muslims are pedophiles. It's incompatible." Blah, 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 all this shit, just like going insane. And it's like, yeah, they're not like, then the public is not ready for that kind of like extreme opinion. And if that gets publicized, if you show that to someone and just be like, "Yo, that's who these people are."
That is
that's
one
who they are.
crucial way to get the people who are on the fringes of falling into this kind of thing, always, is to show them where they will wind up. Like, show them the most extreme example and be like, this will be you.
Yeah.
It turns people away really effectively.
Because this is the thing
the
as
other
well,
thing
like,
is...
Sorry, I was just going to say... Sorry, go on.
You go.
I was just going to say that neoliberalism, even when fascism is supporting it 100%, neoliberalism, if fascism turns against it, they will still put them in prison. They will be like, no, you either do what we say or you go in prison. Like that's the end of it. You know what I mean? You're our attack dogs or you go in prison. You say to people like, this is dangerous legal stuff. You could get put away. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a real like thing to consider. Anyway, sorry.
The Make Britain Great Again doesn't even fucking sound good. Thing reminded me what I should have mentioned earlier when talking about like it being a spectacle for Americans. The protest literally yesterday was called Unite the Kingdom. It's named after the Unite the Right rally where Hezekiah was killed, literally. Anyway, that was the whole thought. So Joe, your kind of last thoughts on this before we wrap up?
I guess my last thoughts would be to tell anyone watching to like think about the spaces in your community where you could start having these sort of conversations and go out and find them and be in them.
That's good. Cool. I guess unless you want to shout any orgs out in particular who you think people should support.
If you live in London, join London Renters Union, or wherever you live, join your local tenants union. I think that they're, of all of the groups doing organizing work, very much on the front line of this. I think that's
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on. We'll chat to you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
See you soon, Joe.
Awesome.
Bye.
See you later, Joe.
Bye.
Right, that's been the show, and now I know how to end the show because I do it. We do this all the time. So I'm not checking. That would be a weird thing to do.
No, why would you do that?
As someone who knows how to end the show. The show, of course, made possible by Patreon. And our Patreon is patreon.com/red_planet. Our patrons there are all good people, morally good people who've never done a single bad thing and are also somehow like real humans who live in the real world. They're shining beacons of morality and goodness and intrinsic worth, and everyone who sees them wants to go give them a little kiss on the head. And if you want that to be you, you can go to patreon.com/red_planet and support us at a variety of different tiers. I wonder sometimes if people think about how content creators do their like plugs for Patreon and stuff, and honestly most of the time I just go a little bit delirious and like that any words come out at all. Anyway, there are several different tiers that you can support us at. You can read all about them if you go over there, get various different rewards. But if you want to support us the most you possibly can, our highest tier is our sicko mode tier. And the unique reward for sickos is to get a personal thanks at the end of every show. And it looks like this. Thank you, Risk Inverse, for being a sicko and making Red Planet possible. Everyone please check out patreon.com/red_planet. Tim, where can people get more Tim?
So you can find me on YouTube and Twitch as Conquest of Dread, or you can find me over on Twitter and Blue Sky as Dread Conquest. Yeah, I'm mainly the most active on Twitter, or X, they say. Yeah, that's where I do most of my shit posting. if you are into like tabletop role-playing games and stuff, you can also jump on Twitter and look up Dark RPG 2000. It's a project I've been working on for a long time that is almost done. It's kind of like a dark future tabletop RPG game, very fun. Um, but what if I want to find out more about Mule? Where can I get more Mule facts?
Well, Tim, if you want more mule facts, you go to the Mule Fact Emporium, which is my Twitch stream where you can learn all about not me and just about things that are happening in the world. Yeah, if you want to go to twitch.tv/ DJ Mule, Monday to Thursday, 7 p.m. to late UK time, I cover pretty much all current events, everything that goes on all around the world as much as I can within a reasonable sort of fashion. Obviously, I don't get everything because there's so much stuff happening all over the world all the time at the minute. Time is so deeply compressed, it just feels insane that summer just kind of happened. I just don't really remember it, really. So yeah, head over to twitch.tv. I also got some new emotes, and it is September, so if you want to come and support your boy, head over, support me with a sub, and get all my new emotes and shit like that. And yeah, get me on YouTube. Go to my linktree /DJ Mule, linktree.ee /DJ Mule, and you can get me on YouTube, you can get me on Patreon, you can get me on TikTok, all the places. But Soph, what about you?
Oh, linktree.ee /Sophie from Mars. That's all the links are there. And I'm thinking about doing a little stream on my stream channel on my Twitch this coming Friday. So if you would like to see me stream, you come check that out. And it might be good. It will be good.
It will
It'll
be
be
good.
it'll be great.
It'll be
And it'll be
great.
great because I take risks and I say what no one else is gonna say because as Charlie Kirk has taught us, practicing politics the right way is all about sticking your neck out for what you believe in.
Mm.
And I am available at linktree.ee /Sophie from Mars. All the things that are there. Go check them out, and we'll see you next week.
Saying the
Bye.
unsayable.